Shares of Meta making big moves on upbeat earnings results today. The company beating the street's expectations on the top and bottom line. Meta also saw some recovery in the ad space, reporting ad revenue growth of 12% year on year. Mark Zuckerberg's year of efficiency showing some signs of paying off. Let's bring in Meta's Chief Financial Officer, Susan Li. She joins us from headquarters in Menlo Park. Susan, it is great to talk to you today. Really strong quarter here that points to a reacceleration of revenue growth. We're talking about 11% growth year on year, digital ad spend specifically 12% year on year. How much of this is about a meaningful rebound we're seeing in the digital ad space? How much of this do you think is specific to what Meta did?
Hi. Well, first of all, thanks so much, Akiko, for having me on the show. It's really great to be here. As you pointed out, this was a really solid quarter for us across broadly our user and engagement metrics, and certainly the reacceleration in revenue that you were pointing to. I'd say that, there are a couple factors that are driving the reacceleration in Q2 revenue, and that also flow into the guidance range that we gave for Q3. First of all, it's an easier compare, frankly, relative to where we were last year at this time, both in Q2 and Q3, and I'd be remiss not to mention that. Second of all, we are seeing stabilization in the broader macroeconomic landscape. And for us specifically in some of the verticals that we have higher exposure to, like e-commerce, retail, CPG, gaming, et cetera. So that's a place where we're optimistic that we're seeing signs of stabilization. And then more broadly, I think we certainly are seeing the execution that we have worked hard on over the last quarters and years, and the investments we've made in product work across both the core engagement side and the ads monetization side, paired with the GPU investments that we've made, play out in a way that I think we feel really good about in terms of contributing to our long run growth. So those are all factors that I think certainly played into the Q2 results on the revenue side. On the expense side, what I'd say is the year of efficiency, I think, has really set us up to be in a good place from a cost structure perspective going forward. It was a tough year, obviously, with a lot of challenging decisions, but we're certainly in a place where we have a leaner cost structure as we plan ahead. And we're also a faster, nimbler company. A lot of the work that we did was really in service of making sure that we're in a position to build more and ship faster and just deliver better experiences for all of the people who use our products. And the final thing that I'd say was a key theme from this earnings call was the early color that we gave into the 2024 expenses. There are a handful of places where we feel like there are compelling opportunities for us to invest in terms of infrastructure, especially around building out our AI capacity, hiring top-tier technical talent, and of course, our long-term vision in Reality Labs and the metaverse. So those are really the big earnings themes for us this quarter.
Yeah, and I want to get to some of those expenses in Reality Labs in just a bit. But when you look at the family of apps, you really did see significant user growth. The latest app out there, Threads, there's a lot of excitement around it. You made it pretty clear on the call that you're still a long way from monetization. But as you look at how to build out that particular app, how significant a revenue driver do you see Threads being in the future?
We're really so early in the life cycle of Threads. I don't think we're at a point yet where we can talk about monetization. Threads is the new standalone app that we just released earlier this month. We're pleased with its user growth numbers and its retention, certainly for a new standalone app that we have just launched. And we're at a place where our focus is really on making sure that the consumer experience is as good as possible. There's foundational product work we need to do, features that users have asked for that we need to invest in. And then we have a playbook that we have executed many times across our history in terms of growing users, in terms of increasing engagement, stabilizing retention. That's going to be our primary focus for quite a long time to come until we're at a place where we feel like it makes sense to start thinking about monetization of Threads in earnest.
You getting some calls, though, from advertisers who are excited, maybe potentially moving away from X and looking at Threads as another opportunity?
I mean, I'm certainly excited about Threads. I am glad that advertisers are, but it's very early for us. We are very pleased, though, with a lot of the work that we've seen happen across Reels. That's a place where we've executed that playbook that I talked about across growing the product experience, increasing engagement, and ultimately monetizing. in a way that's been really, I think, productive for both the people who use Reels and for advertisers.
You mentioned the expenses that are adding up. Operating losses for Reality Labs increased more than 30% year on year. And you've been pretty clear next year you're going to be spending even more. I realize this is a long-term play, but where is that investment going? And ultimately, where do you see the return? Is it more in hardware or more in software?
This is a really good question. So Reality Labs is a very broad portfolio for us. It spans a lot of things. I think what most people are familiar with is our VR products, the Quest and Quest 2 devices that we've had out in the market, which have really established themselves, I think, as the leading VR headset experience. We also have the Quest Pro device, which was our first mixed reality product, but we're bringing a much more broadly accessible mixed reality device, the Quest 3, to customers later this year. So that's the VR anchor. Now, as I mentioned, the Quest 3 is actually one of our sort of broader forays into mixed reality, which we think both is going to establish the standard for headsets going forward. It's also going to be an introduction over the longer term to AR devices. And AR is really, I think, the place where our time horizon is longest. It is really about trying to build towards the next computing platform. It's where a lot of the investment is going. We also have work, of course, developing the metaverse and social experiences related to the metaverse. And finally, neural interfaces. To your question on the time horizon for returns, it's really a very long-term time horizon, especially on the AR side. But as Mark talked about yesterday on the call, there's both an expansive product vision and a desire to be part of the shaping and the building of the next computing platform. But at the same time, we recognize that there's also a lot of business value that gets accrued from having a key role in really building the next platform. And that's something that we've learned, being built on other platforms right now. So even though there's very much a strong product vision that's underpinning this, at the same time, it's really built towards unlocking a lot of business value over this time horizon also.
A lot of excitement around artificial intelligence. Meta has talked about the use of AI, especially within advertising for some time. But now there's a lot of excitement around Llama and generative AI. How do you see that technology being applied from a consumer standpoint, from a user standpoint? How do you think the experience shifts as a result of this technology?
Yeah, so we've been investing in AI for a long time, but historically more of the emphasis has been on the core ranking and recommendations work that has powered our feed, our ads, the existing consumer experience and advertiser experience. What we're looking ahead at when we talk about the Gen AI work that we're doing is really around how do we make it easier for people to create better, more individualized content. That's true for both creators and for advertisers. How do we enable people to have conversational experiences with AI that are going to enhance different parts of their experience? And how do we enable businesses to talk to and communicate with consumers more efficiently and more productively than they do today? And we think that across all of those dimensions, there's going to be opportunities for us to build out new product experiences and features for our users and for advertisers that we hope will be really valuable. But that's all very, very early. It's not, for example, a part of our revenue guidance in Q3. It's something that we're really thinking about more in the future.
Finally, Susan, something that both you and Mark touched on very briefly in the call yesterday, which is the tough regulatory environment we're seeing in D.C. right now. Today, we've got Senator Elizabeth Warren as well as Lindsey Graham coming out and calling for a federal agency that essentially cracks down on tech. When you look at the environment right now, to what extent does that tie your hands in terms of acquisitions, in terms of capitalizing on the opportunities? How much does that slow down your vision for expansion, knowing the checks that are now being put in place from a regulatory standpoint?
It's a good question. First of all, on the regulatory side, what I'd say is we've been navigating a challenging regulatory environment for some time now, and we're always focused on working productively with regulators to establish frameworks that help protect people while at the same time not stifling growth or innovation. So that's something that we're very focused on, and we want to make sure that we're engaged with regulators productively. It's a big focus. On the second part of your question, we've got a lot of organic opportunities to invest in. We talked about the investments in AI. That's a place where we're going to be building out a lot of experiences ourselves. Same on the Reality Lab side over a longer time horizon. So while we're always evaluating the broader M&A landscape for potential opportunities for us to expand via acquisition. At the same time, I think we've got plenty of things that we can work on organically that are really compelling investment opportunities for the years ahead.
Meta CFO Susan Li, really great to talk to you today. Appreciate your time.